I don't care about my feelings. I care about what works. If you repeat to yourself that I'm a loser, well, then you're going to lose. So I will happily run in the wrong direction, 1,000 miles an hour in the wrong direction. I just need to learn so that I can adjust course and then get moving in the right direction. You don't find your purpose. You create a purpose. You can do anything you set your mind to if you're willing to pay the price, but most of you aren't going to be willing to pay the price. That's what most people do because they feel good talking about their goal. I don't care how I feel. I spent millions of dollars that I didn't need to on a video game, tried to build something that was high fidelity right out of the gate.
What can you promise them today to gain if they gave us their time?
High utility, that's my whole thing. So
Tom, he co-founded Quest Nutrition and turned it into $1 billion empire. Then launched Impact Theory, one of the most powerful mindset media platforms on the planet, reaching over 4 million subscribers and reshaping how people think, act, and build. For Tom specifically, is there a particular belief that you planted in yourself that really changed your life? And in the beginning, it was super unnatural.
Yeah, no doubt. So for me, the biggest change in my life was when I realized that
Welcome back, Alpha Squad, to another inspiring episode of the Alpha Talk Show, the #1 fastest growing show in the region, where we don't just talk success, we decode it. Where we don't just meet alphas, we search for the human behind the alpha. And today we're sitting with an alpha who doesn't just play the game, he rewrites the rules. He co-founded Quest Nutrition and turned it into $1 billion empire. Then launched Impact Theory, one of the most powerful mindset media platforms on the planet, reaching over 4 million subscribers and reshaping how people think, act, and build. But beyond the success, beyond the brand, beyond the podcast clips that goes viral, he's a thinker, a builder, a challenger of everything broken in the system, from outdated education to mental laziness to the collapse of innovation. He's not here to play safe, he's here to call out the truth, build the future of AI-powered storytelling, and teaching millions how to build an unstoppable mind in a collapsing world. From strategy to deep psychology, from first principles to inner peace. He sat with Ray Dalio, David Goggins, and much more, but today he sits with us. Tom, welcome to the Alpha Talk Show. It's a pleasure to have you on the show.
It's a pleasure to be here. Thanks for having me.
Really, I'm super interested and looking forward to have a great conversation with you. You are a role model for me. And before I start the episode, I always have a question. Once we publish the episode, people will absolutely see the thumbnail, the graphics, the title, and will say that it's absolutely interesting episode. What can you promise them today to gain if they gave us their time?
Well, if you ask good questions, I will give amazing answers. High utility, that's my whole thing. So what I care about in life is understanding that you can get basically anything you want, but you've got to map out what the cause and effect of that is and make sure that you are doing the things you need to do to achieve your outcomes. And so often people steer by what feels good instead of what actually works. So every word out of my mouth is going to be something that works, that I've tested against the real world over and over and over, and have found that it yields real results. So that much I can promise.
I love that. Tom, with all the titles, the successes, and everything, and whatever people knows about you, who's real Tom behind all that? From your perspective.
Well, I try for there to be no gap between what people see and who I am. If you really want to understand, though, how I'm wired, I am somebody who is very obsessed with mapping out what I actually am made of. So making sure that I understand I'm having a biological experience, that I'm trapped inside of a frame of reference, that colors everything that I both look at and what I see, that the only thing that matters in life is how you feel about yourself when you're by yourself. So how do I earn my own respect? And going back to that idea of cause and effect, that I believe I can achieve a lot in my life if I can acquire the skills that are necessary to execute against the demands that my goals make. And so that's been my whole life, is going from being afraid that I wasn't smart enough to be successful to realizing I could get better at anything with enough effort. and really trying to take control of that process and seeing if, even in the face of success, if I can stay hungry, I can stay driven, and really map out what the human experience is and how to do it well. But other than that, what people see is what they get.
I love that. Once I heard in a podcast that you were talking about your identity, and you refer to your identity as a writer that had to master business to control the art. Am I correct? It's a very interesting statement.
Yeah, no,
What
you're
is
definitely
art?
correct. So I got into business to be a filmmaker. Film isn't really super relevant anymore. So that same storytelling impulse manifests as video games now. What I usually explain to people is, if you're trying to figure out who I am, the right way to think about me is not as an entrepreneur, but instead as like the village storyteller. And so I only became an entrepreneur because I wanted to control the art, which meant I had to control the assets. And so to get good at the very thing I want to do, which is tell stories that impact people in the 11 to 15-year-old range, I had to go on a crazy 20 plus year journey of just mastering the finance, the way to build a company, the entrepreneurship of it all, how to control my own destiny. And so if I had to do it over again, though, I wouldn't do it that way. But unfortunately, with what I understood at the time, it really did make a lot of sense. And so my identity, yes, is that of an artist, a writer. And the very specific way that I'm trying to impact the world is to impact people 11 to 15 through story. But it's not at all what I'm known for right now.
I love that. But how did you find art now versus back in the days? Did it change, or it's the same, Tom?
No, it's very different now. So when I was 12, when I decided this is what I was going to do, filmmaking was the art form. And so to watch film not only become TV, but for film and TV to both be swallowed by gaming, I never could have predicted that. The good news is that from the impulse that drives my desire to be a writer, storyteller, filmmaker, is triggered in the exact same way developing games. Games may even be a far more distilled version of that. So it's incredibly thrilling with the rise of AI to see just how much you can do by yourself. But game development is technically excruciatingly difficult. And so filmmaking already had a large technical side, but it felt manageable. Game development is a beast unto itself. It's very complex. Now it's getting easier by the day with AI, but still it's a medium where you both have to be highly technical and highly creative.
Your mindset, Tom, is something that I truly respect. One of the things that I know that breakthrough that happened to you was when you identified, or you realized that you were hopelessly average. That's a statement that breaks a lot of people. Once I realized that I'm average, a lot of people will break. But for you, it was a breakthrough. Everything changed. How did you manage that? How did you work that out?
I try never to fight against what's true. So once you know something is true, then it's like, what do you do about it? And once I let go of needing to be extraordinary and just said, okay, listen, you're hopelessly average, but you're an average human, and humans are the ultimate adaptation machine. So the name of the game is, how much energy, effort, and discipline can you apply to getting better? And given that the human animal is designed to grow and get better, would you be able to really become 100 times better than you are now? Maybe you're never going to be the best in the world, but could you get 100 times better than you are now at something that matters to you? And would that be transformative for your life, financially, in your relationships, in your self-respect? And the answer is yes, very much so. And so instead of worrying about posturing or looking cool, I'm just like, I don't care about any of that. I don't mind if I'm embarrassed. I'm just going to acquire skills. Simple as.
Ooh.
Because if I can get 100 times better at something, it will change my life so radically that it becomes unrecognizable. And when I was young, I just wanted to know that I was born with natural gifts and that by the way that I was born, that I was just better than people. And so I had to give up on that. But that unlocked this, oh, but wait a second, I can actually go develop a very useful set of skills and then deploy that set of skills against things that I care deeply about. And that's been the joyride of a life. And it's made me fantastically wealthy. But honestly, that becomes the sort of outcrop of just getting good at something.
You know, Tom, a lot of people asks me, like, Seif, what kind of skills should I acquire in this era? A lot of people talk, what kind of skills? So I usually say, like, okay, here are your goals. What are your goals? And find what skills you need to reach your goals. Do you look at skills from a different perspective, or it's the same path?
Well, it depends on why the person is trying to acquire the skills. But at the easiest level of analysis, I agree with you 100%. You have a goal. Those goals make demands. And then you either get good enough to meet the demands of your goals or you don't. But in that this is a rapidly changing world, certainly what you decide to make a goal can be better or worse. And so I imagine there's a lot of anxiety that people have around future-proofing themselves. I think that that's very wise to think about that. Yeah. And so getting good at AI, understanding, again, what are you trying to do? There's a thing you're trying to do with AI. So AI is not the end goal in and of itself, unless you're trying to be the next Sam Altman. The goal is going to be AI is a tool. You want to leverage it to do a thing. And certainly right now, AI will let you down in terms of the finished product. It'll be very good at helping you brainstorm or to do pieces of the project for you, but you still have to have the good taste. You still have to push it. You still have to know what you're trying to create, to have a deep why as to why am I doing this? What's the point? What's going to keep me motivated? But if you do all of that, the rate that AI can speed you up is astonishing. So I would encourage people, you need to learn to think from first principles. That's going to be useful no matter what changes happen in technology. And you need to make sure that you are building a skill set that allows you to use the tool of AI.
Since we touched upon the AI part, do you think a lot of jobs will be kicked out? Like a lot of people think that they're going to be like, okay, there is a bubble of AI or a trend of an AI, but this trend will make people sit at home, will make a lot of jobs lost.
Guaranteed.
So where are you standing with, like, okay, are we supporting AI 100%? Or there should be a limit for an AI because, again, part of the population would be jobless at the end of the day. Let's talk about, like, for example, the gardeners. Like, a gardener job will stay a gardener, but a graphic designer job will diminish. So how do you see this? Where are we going?
So AI is certainly going to get rid of an unimaginable number of jobs that we have right now. And the quality of a lot of those jobs is going to change dramatically. So take a programmer. You're no longer going to be worried about writing the actual syntax of the code itself, but you're still going to be involved in problem solving, at least for now. And understanding that there are going to be jobs that will come online that we can't anticipate right now. And that's why I say understanding what you want, the impact that you're trying to have, and how to use AI as the tool, that's the right play. Don't stand still. So yes, the tools are going to change rapidly. In 2 years from now, you're certainly going to be using things in a different way. But you don't want to put yourself in a position where, well, I'm going to wait and see. You want to be skating to where the puck is going to be, even though it feels like the puck is now essentially teleporting. You are able to make some predictions about where the technology is going. Take game design. AI has just radically altered the way that we do game development. So previously, to create a character for the game, to design that character, to 3D model that character, to rig that character and animate that character would take months. And now we can do all of that in an afternoon. Absolutely insane. And so it doesn't mean that you're not still a game developer. It just means that some of the things you had to spend your time on before go away. Some of the things that were your moat went away. And now it's creating new jobs, or certainly new job descriptions. Whereas before you might have only done like, I'm a rigger. Well, that's going to go away because that's like 4 minutes of the process. And so now it's going to be, I create characters for video games. Cool. Now that's going to be design. That's going to be rigging, modeling, the AI creation for the intelligence of the creature, and so how it interacts with the world. And so now one person can do a lot more, which honestly for me is far more satisfying. And those are the things that we can already imagine. Now once, because the amount that we've cut down our development time and the amount that we've reduced the cost of our games is absolutely insane. And so as those timelines speed up and the costs come down, well, if I want to take extra time and spend extra money, what new jobs will be created as I go, oh, well, now we can really push the limits of the game. So for instance, what if I want to tie the game into your wearable devices so that if you're getting good sleep and your heart rate variable is really good, that your character has a cosmetic reflection of that. And so now people can flex like in a whole new way. Well, cool. Now I've got an integrator that's got to go in and create the API calls and make sure that we can pull that data in. So there are going to be things like that. And then there are going to be things truly that I won't even be able to imagine.
Wow. Are you building something, a new kind of media studio, like Kaizen or something like that, right?
Yeah, so we just rough ourselves out to what we call new media. It's not super clearly defined because things are changing so fast. I think by the time we pin down a definition, a new ability would come online and we'd have to change it again. But we do something we call borderless entertainment. So the goal is...
But what is broken? Sorry, Tom. What is broken in today's media that this like Kaizen is trying to fix? Like,
I won't even say that it's broken. It's just that we have new capabilities. So there are things that we can do now that we couldn't do before. We're up against a consumer that has different consumption patterns. And so if you don't do things in a new way, you're going to be out innovated by somebody who is. And so, for instance, one of the big things that people worry about is second screens. So somebody sits down to watch a movie, but they're also on TikTok at the same time. So we're thinking, how do we blur the lines between when you're in the game and when you're not in the game? So, hey, you're in the grocery store. What if on your phone, we could open up a mixed reality portal so that you could do something like a Pokemon Go where you're in there and you're waiting in line at the grocery store, but you can look around and some of the resources that you would normally collect inside the game, you can actually collect inside the grocery store. Wow. And so there are things like Web3, blockchain, they allow you to do things like that. So you can literally blur the line between are you in the game, are you not in the game? And now players are able to play when they want, how they want, versus the more traditional where you're like, you've got to sit down in front of your PC or your console. That's the only time you can play, the only place you can play. Technology is really allowing us to blur those lines.
Wow. Super impressive. Tom, I want to switch a little bit to the mindset and the limiting beliefs. For Tom specifically, is there a particular belief that you planted in yourself that really changed your life? And in the beginning, it was super unnatural.
Yeah, no doubt. So for me, the biggest change in my life was when I realized that what I built my self-esteem around mattered a lot. So I think by default, every human values themselves for being better, faster, stronger, smarter, tougher, whatever. But those are all very fragile positions. You are routinely going to find a situation that you're not equipped for. You're going to go up against somebody that's better than you. And I realized, okay, if I switch my self-esteem instead to my willingness to stare nakedly at my inadequacies, I could actually get better. And so instead of lying to myself, or worse, putting myself in a room where I really was the smartest person, put myself into a room where people are better, faster, stronger than me. And what I value myself for is my willingness to say, oh, I'm not right about this. I'm not as good at this as I could be. And so I'm going to just ask myself, what do I need to do to get better? And if asking myself that question actually is the thing that makes me feel good about myself, then I have no incentive to lie. I have no incentive to go and be around smaller people. I only have an incentive to be honest and get better. And that changed my life. But most people, they want to flex on how right they are, how much better they are than somebody else right now today. And I don't care about any of that. But it also means that it doesn't matter if you think I'm dumb or if I'm embarrassing myself. I don't care about that. I am just valuing myself for my willingness to go, oh, I'm not as good at this as I could be. And now let me focus on getting better. And that puts you on a skill acquisition path, and acquiring skills and deploying them against something that matters to you and to society at large is all that matters to earning your own respect, being fulfilled, and quite frankly, if you do it well, making money.
Wow. Tom, but it happened to you naturally, or you faced something that you had to change your belief system? Because there are a lot of people, they don't feel it that way, and they go naturally, as you said, I want to flex, 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 but if you want to flex, there is a person above you in a way. Harder, stronger, whatever, is faster. Where is the transition that you told yourself, like, okay, I'm going to go that way. How can I be better? And you believe in that. You can stare naked into your weaknesses. What happened?
I wanted to impress my then fiance, now wife. And
okay.
I was ashamed, quite literally ashamed of myself, because I was laying in bed 4 to 5 hours a day, every day. My father-in-law did not give me his blessing to marry his daughter because he didn't think I was going to be successful. And so I just realized, hold on a second, I really am going nowhere fast, as they say. And I don't like the way this makes me feel. I don't have my own respect. And one day I decided I'm going to earn it, because if I don't, I'm going to make this woman's life worse. And so I decided then and there that I was going to get out of bed in 10 minutes or less every day, no matter what. I was going to get to work immediately on meeting the demands of my goals. And that changed everything, man. And I just became obsessed with getting good and taking action, never standing still, and earning my respect, earning her respect, and proving my father-in-law wrong, who, by the way, was always lovely to me. But he was honest. And he was like, I don't think you should marry my daughter. And listen, like, you're going to have to make some serious changes if you want to get better. And so it was like, finally, when all of that crashed into, I now don't respect myself, I made the change.
That means, Tom, that people can really rewire their belief system and as if start from scratch. But okay, from Tom, what is a simple hack for people to really rewire their limiting beliefs, change their, put empowering ones? What can be a hack?
You become what you repeat, and your life will be a reflection of what you tolerate. So if you repeat to yourself that I'm a loser, well, then you're going to lose. If you repeat to yourself, I can get better and I just need to put in the time, then you're going to get better. If you focus on, like, I'm the kind of person that I push to the very end. I don't quit, man. I run 5 steps past the finish line. Cool. Then you're going to do that and you're going to execute at a high level. So I don't let myself circle around negative thoughts. I can't stop myself from having the first one, but I can stop myself from having the second one. And then I build rules into my life that I think people underutilize rules. So like I was saying, I get out of bed in 10 minutes or less. Cool. Well, all of a sudden you're not wasting 4 and 5 hours a day because you get out of bed in 10 minutes or less. I don't allow myself to stand still. So no matter how hard a decision is to make, no matter how much I need to learn, I give myself 72 hours on the hardest decision. And then I am moving. I may move in the wrong direction. That's fine. Failure is the most information-rich data stream on planet Earth. So I will happily run in the wrong direction, 1,000 miles an hour in the wrong direction. I just need to learn so that I can adjust course and then get moving in the right direction. When you stand still, you learn nothing. And that is far worse than going in the wrong direction and learning something profound.
Wow. Which means that affirmations work or doesn't work to a great extent.
It doesn't work alone. Like you actually have to take the action. But yes, if you're repeating something stupid, it's going to make your life worse. If you're repeating something and it makes you actually take the actions, then you're going to get where you want to go. But the hard truth is you could repeat all the wrong things, but if you do the right things, you'll win. And you could repeat all the right things, and if you do the wrong things, you'll lose. But it just so happens that for the most part, if you repeat the wrong things, you will do the wrong things. So people need to take control of their mind. They need to hold themselves accountable. They need to stop making excuses. They need to repeat the things that they want to fall in line with, but they need to hold themselves accountable to action. Things will not happen just because you repeat it.
When I repeat something and I take action, does it affect my identity, Tom? Which means, because you always say that our identity is a malleable thing. So when I repeat something to myself and I take actions on it, so it means I can shape my identity, correct?
Correct.
Okay. So what will be the first thing that people who really want to go outside of their comfort zone to develop themselves is to start thinking positively about themselves and their goals and taking
Not
actions on it?
The first thing they need to do is say, I'm only going to do what works. And then through the lens of I'm only going to do what works, you say, where exactly do I want to end up? And then you endlessly run what I call the physics of progress. Now, it just so happens that if you say to yourself, listen, humans are designed to adapt. And so I can get better at this. It's brain plasticity. I can learn new things at any time, but it takes a lot of time and energy. Okay, so if I believe that putting time and energy, this is what I call the only belief that matters. If I put time and energy into getting better at this thing, I will actually get better at this thing. And then skills have utility. So once I'm good at a thing, I can go do that thing. And if you're in that loop and you're taking action, then you will get better over time. You don't necessarily have to think positive things. You just need to be obsessed with what's effective. And some days, the most effective thing you can do is say, I'm disgusted by the fact that I'm laying in bed. I don't tolerate this anymore. I am getting out of bed right now. That's not me talking nicely to myself. That's me saying, this is what I need to do because it works. And if you're talking to yourself nicely, endlessly on a loop, and you're still not moving towards your goals, well, then talking nicely to yourself isn't the game. The game is utility. What works? And if I could get people obsessed with only doing what works, their life would be a lot better. But people want to do what feels right instead of what actually works. I don't care about my feelings. I care about what works.
I love this. I don't care about my feelings because, you know, like Tom, a lot of people say like, don't talk to yourself bad. Don't be harsh on yourself. Take it step by step. Is it good to talk harsh to myself? Like
sometimes,
say, what the hell are you doing?
If talking harsh to yourself makes you hate yourself, crawl in a hole and not want to face the world, then that was the dumbest thing that you could do. If talking positively to yourself makes you feel like you've already achieved your goals, and so you just sit around the house and you're lazy and your life spirals into madness, well, then that was a stupid thing to do. So it is about, what do I need in this exact moment to take the actions that will lead me to fulfillment, just as an easy way to say it. It's like, oh, cool. Right now, I need to kick myself in my own ass, then do it. If right now what I need is a day off and to love myself, then do that. But you know where you're trying to end up. You have clearly articulated your goal. And now you're only doing and believing the things that are actually making measurable progress towards your goal. The problem is everybody lies to themselves, and because they feel good about who they are, they're like, no, I'm making progress. And they say, I'll be there in 6 months. And they say that for 10 years. That's what most people do because they feel good talking about their goal. I don't care how I feel. I have not made progress in the last 10 days. That is a problem by definition. And so now I'm not going to worry about beating myself up. I'm just going to say the things that I'm doing by definition are not working. I don't feel badly about that. It just is true. And so now, cool. What's the new thing that I'm going to try? What can I learn from this failure? How do I get a little bit smarter, try again? And then that thing will almost certainly not work as well as I want to. And so I'm going to learn from that, and I'm going to get a little bit smarter every day, every experiment that I run. And then, man, over time, a year, 3 years, all of a sudden you're really good at something that other people can't do, because you never lost faith when you failed. You didn't worry that people were laughing at you and that you were embarrassed because you tried something and it didn't work and you looked really stupid doing it. Who cares? If you're actually going to learn from that thing, literally, who cares? Otherwise, you're saying, I'm more worried about what that person thinks of me than I am about success. Stop that nonsense immediately. That is beyond stupid.
Oof, oof, oof. How do you face all these people, the billions on the line, the chaos, and you keep yourself emotionally grounded? How it's possible?
Dude, because I am legitimately obsessed with my goals. I actually want them to come true. And I actually believe the only belief that matters, if I put time and energy into getting good at this thing, I will get good. So I have tried a thing. It did not work. What is the answer? Put time and energy into getting good at the thing that stopped it from working. Go do that. And so either I'm willing to put the time and effort into it because I care about my goal, or I'm not willing to put the time and energy into it, but I'm certainly not going to waste time hemming and hawing or telling myself some story. The reality is we live in a world that operates on cause and effect. If you find the right cause, you will get the right effect. And so this is a game of experimentation, not letting your ego get in the way, not letting your emotions blind you and make you think that something is working that isn't. You look at definitions of progress. If you're trying to drive to your friend's house and you're sitting in the car and the car isn't moving, you are not making progress. If you know that you're currently 10 miles away from your friend and now you're 9 miles away, you're making progress. Cool. I've got a KPI. I'm judging by the KPI whether I'm making progress towards my goal or not.
Is everything for you numbers, Tom? Like as a
It's
KPI
never going to
or
be
something?
everything, but what I tell people is if it can be turned into math, turn it into math. Now, if anybody's encountering me right now for the first time, they will think that my marriage looks like this. My marriage does not look like this. My marriage is fun. My marriage is laughter and getting along. But when something isn't going right, then we go back and go, okay, hold on a second. We're doing something that isn't working. We need to identify what that thing is. What's our goal? What are we doing that isn't working? Why isn't it working? Lowering our egos, not like going at each other from a place of insecurity, being totally honest about where we are, what the problem is, because we're both willing to stare nakedly at our inadequacies. And we know whatever problem I might be creating, I can get good at this. So I don't want people to think that I walk through life like a machine. But the reality is the way that I think through the world is from first principles. Always. It is not from emotion.
Which is like what get measured, get managed in a way, correct?
Yes,
So
and you also know, is this actually working? Because if you don't know where you're trying to end up, or you don't know the KPI that you will use to judge progress, dude, the people will stay still for decades because they never gave themselves a date by which they were going to achieve their goal, and or they never had the KPI that they were going to use as the barometer of whether they're actually making progress.
You have a lot to say about self-respect. You say that you have to earn your self-respect every single day. What does it mean, earn self-respect every single day, Tom?
Very simply, first of all, if you define your value system, earning your respect will be about living up to your value system. Values are the things you believe one ought to do. Once you say this is how people ought, moral judgment, they ought to behave, did I act in the way that I actually believe people ought to behave? And if I did, then you're going to feel good about that. Otherwise, you don't actually believe it. So if you've identified the real things that you believe people ought to do and you do it, win, lose, or draw, it's like, hey, I did the thing that I believe people ought to do. So for me, you should play to win. You should constantly be trying to push your skill set. You should be fearless. You should not worry about embarrassment. You should always lose from failure. Cool. I do all of that, but let's say that I don't hit my goal. Well, wasn't anything that I just listed, people should judge themselves by whether they achieve their goal or not. No, I never say that. Literally never. People should judge themselves by whether they sincerely pursue their goal. But your goal just may not be achievable. There may be too many variables that you can't control. You may not be smart enough to achieve your goal, but it doesn't mean that you can't give it your everything. And if you value yourself, respect yourself for playing to win, doing everything in your power to get there, and not valuing yourself for the outcome, you're going to be fine.
True, but Tom, here I want to stop here a little bit because the value system is very important. For people to have their value system set, is it something that I'm not going to say born with, but raised with? Or it's sometimes it comes to a point in your life, you define your value system where you want to move ahead with?
Your value system can be changed. It is very malleable, but every one of us is a product of the culture that we grow up in, the time period that we grow up in. Your values are handed to you primarily by your parents and the culture that you were raised in. And so most people never stop to take the time to say, actually, I don't like some of these values. And instead, I'm going to put these values in. But you very much can do it. It's just most people won't.
True. There is an easy way, Tom, for people to discover because their value system has to match in a way their identity, to discover their value system? Or they say like, okay, I like in this person this, I like in that person that, and it's a mix of things?
It can be a mix of things as long as there is connective tissue. Like you have a very holistic picture that you can explain very simply. And then all the nuance can be cobbled together from all different people, all over the world, all different cultures. I've taken a lot from Taoism, for instance, but I wasn't raised Taoist by any means. But I learned a lot from that. I've taken a lot from business and how hard it is and the things you have to learn about toughness and resilience and all of that. So there's no doubt that I've cobbled my value system together, but there is like a defining characteristic. And if I were going to sum it up very simply, I would say that people ought to do things that lead to fulfillment. And fulfillment has a very clear definition, which is you work very hard to gain a set of skills that you care about for your own reasons that allow you to uplift yourself and others, period. And that's life. And so every word out of my mouth that you're ever going to hear is going to be congruent with that pretty concise setup.
I love this definition of fulfillment, Tom. You spoke also about emotional control as a skill. Okay, so for Tom, what do you do, or the go-to method you go for when you want to reset? Like how
so
you do
I
that?
look
What
at
is
myself,
this?
I am a chemical processing plant. For people that believe in God, hey, I'm a divine chemical processing plant. But for whatever reason, we are made such that I could give you a drug and it would impact you, some drugs, instantly, and it will change your mood, how you think, how you feel. So altering somebody's neurochemistry changes everything. So I'm like, that's interesting. That means that these states that I'm in are not a reflection of reality. They could be a reflection of how well I slept or didn't sleep. And so I could have gotten in a fight with my wife, but now I'm talking to somebody else and I'm still mad. So it's like, okay, wait a second, that's nonsensical. So I realized very quickly I'm a chemical processing plant, but to some degree, I can manipulate my own chemistry. And once I got that unlocked, I was like, whoa, okay, so emotions are the subconscious speaking to you in the only language that it has. It is the subconscious's goal is to make sure that you live long enough to have kids that have kids, which may or may not be the goal that is meaningful to me in this moment. And so between the impulses that I have, the emotions that I have, they are not necessarily guiding me towards fulfillment. So I need to take a more manual approach to my emotions, not act on my emotions, but instead, when I feel a strong emotion, figure out why I feel it, ask myself, what am I actually trying to accomplish here? And then figure out, does enacting this emotion help me move towards that goal? If it does, then cool. I will lean into that emotion just like anybody else would. If it doesn't, then I won't. And I'll say, nope, I'm going to kill that. I'm going to step outside of that emotion as much as I can and operate from a place of just cause and effect, getting back to, I need to do this thing over here to lead to where I want to go.
Wow. Talking about this emotional control, Tom, you're calling out the broken systems. We're talking about the inflation, the outdated education. So you have a lot of responsibilities on your shoulder. That's your goal, that's your mission. You're going ahead in that direction. But how do you protect your mental state at the end of the day? Like how this happens? That's a big thing.
So I'm a biological creature. I'm well aware that I need to take care of that biology. So I sleep very well every night. I eat an extraordinarily clean diet. I exercise, work out, like all the things that you would need to do to be good at a cellular level. I also manage my psychology so that I'm enjoying my life. I think that is very important. And if I ever run into something where I'm like, I am now, I can feel overwhelm beginning at the edges of my mind. I have a rule in my life. I don't do overwhelm. And so that's a twofold path. Path number one, don't pray for a lighter load. Instead, pray for stronger shoulders. So I do try to be as tough as humanly possible. But then I also understand that the answer is often do less. And so if on a Tuesday, I'm like, nah, I'm feeling like physically taxed right now, then I'll chill. And I literally do not understand. And if I'm being really honest, man, I don't respect people that can't have more things to do than they can get done. You've got to be able to live in a world where you've got 1,000 things to get done, and you're only going to be able to get 4 of them done. And it simply is true that if you could get 1,000 things done, your life would be better, but you can't get 1,000 things done. And so you have a mechanism and you just go, 4 is my max. And I'm perfectly willing to accept whatever life consequences come with the fact that for stress management levels, health, whatever, enjoyment, 4 is it. Cool. Then only do 4. And again, I've got methods that I teach people on how to do this, but this is one that drives me crazy. If you have so little control over your mind that you can't even know that there are more things out there that you could do, that's crazy. That's mental illness. You do not have control of your mind, and you need to immediately develop control of your mind.
And that goes also towards gritness, like how to build more grit. Tom, do you have a hack
you want to be able to push.
people?
Look, there's no hack. It's do hard things as often as you can. Cold exposure, meditation, working out. These are all things that are going to take you to the point where you don't want to do them anymore and you push beyond it in service of a bigger goal. Just do that a lot and you'll find that you can push the edge of what you're willing to push through farther and farther back. But honestly, a lot of this comes down to people just don't want their goals very badly. And because they don't want their goals very badly, they are not willing to do those hard things. Also, I think people want things to come easily. And so the mere fact that it doesn't come easily is they just tap out.
But Tom, a question, because you said like for people to push further, like you're talking that people push physically, so it helps them also mentally to push further?
Yeah, that's one and the same. You're using the body as a way to get to the mind. So the mind has to have a thing that it does to practice being uncomfortable in the service of a goal. So the body's just a very easy way. The gym is massively transformative. Running, massively transformative. Things like Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. These are all things where you're going to find yourself deeply uncomfortable. It's going to be hard. And in service of your goal, you have to keep doing it anyway. So do those things. Like there's no quick, easy one. You just have to really build the endurance, the willingness to suffer.
That's why, like, I believe, like, all these sports people, like, I was a Kung Fu national team, and people were telling me, like, what Kung Fu taught you, it's one thing I never give up. I think that the kind of sport that pushes you beyond the limits builds your great perseverance. I love that the physical part is important that ties to the mental.
No doubt, man. And look, because you were a physique competitor, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, so same thing. Like if you can get control of your body, it's really a proxy for the mind. Nobody gets in the kind of shape that you got into without having control of their mind.
True. Tom, one more thing, which is like being like super responsible. Because I love a thing that you said, that when you said like even if a drunk driver hits you, it's your responsibility. I love that statement. Can you tell me more about it? Like, what do you mean? Like, just to take a responsibility of everything around me?
It's the only thing that will serve you. So I don't say that so people will feel badly. If you get hit by a drunk driver, I don't want you to feel badly. I just want you to go, okay, I got a result that I absolutely hate. I do not want to get this result next time. So what would I do differently next time to get a different result? And if you have that in every area of your life, I just got divorced. Okay, well, don't blame your wife. That would be a mistake. You chose her. So what was it that you did poorly in choosing? Or did you mismanage the relationship? So in every aspect of my life, if something's going wrong, I just ask, what do I need to do differently to get a different result? It puts you in a power position. So I'm trying to keep people in a position where they're in control. They're focused on the things they can do. But most people they don't want the emotion of I did something wrong, because that's somebody who builds their self-esteem around being right, better, faster, stronger. And I'm saying, don't learn from your mistakes. Take your value from that. And so now it's like, I didn't get what I wanted. I know if I do something differently that I can get a different result. And I feel good about myself precisely because I'm saying, oh, I can do something different. I made a mistake here. That is the thing that makes you feel good. And so if people can build that mental scaffolding, they'll be in great shape.
But Thomas asks, for this, to have a responsibility of everything, does it come with an emotional cost? Like, if I'm responsible for everything around me, it's at the same time, it has an emotional cost on me. How I deal with this, or I just train myself?
It only has an emotional cost if you value yourself for being right. If you value yourself for being right, then when something goes wrong, you feel badly about yourself.
Okay.
If you literally know, I'm going to be wrong so often, and the only thing that makes any sense is to value myself for getting better, for recognizing that I did something wrong and improving. And by the way, it shouldn't take a lot of work because that's how life works. This is the scientific method. And once I realized, oh, that really is just how life works. You really do learn more from failure than you do from success. So it's like, wait, why again am I bothered by failure? So because I don't build my self-esteem around being right, when I'm wrong and taking responsibility for everything, I feel expansive. I'm like, oh man, okay, cool. I get what I need to do and change. It doesn't mean that I don't get annoyed because now it's going to take me longer to achieve the result that I wanted to achieve. But I don't feel the weight of the world. I'm just like, I want to get this done. I want to get it done as quickly as I can. I find things that bring out your aggression, that can be very beneficial. Things that make you like contract and shrink back because you're like, oh man, I'm wrong again. I'm so dumb. I'm such a loser. Like that's not going to take you anywhere. So you've got to break that relationship between I failed and therefore am a failure, and I failed and therefore, oh, cool. This is an opportunity to prove to myself that I stare nakedly at my inadequacies so I can figure out what I actually need to do differently so that I can make progress. And then, I'm actually going to make progress compared to the next person who is going to constantly avoid feeling stupid. And so they're not going to learn as fast as I do.
Wow. You've spoken a lot about failure. What is your greatest failure to date, Tom? Like the one that you're really grateful for?
Honestly, that I'm really grateful for. I really learned from. So I spent millions of dollars that I didn't need to on a video game because I tried to build something that was high fidelity right out of the gate. Now that I've been in it for 3 years, that is so dumb. That is so the exact opposite thing that you should be doing. And I really thought it was a competitive advantage. It was just stupid. So on that one, it's boy, oh boy. There is a reason that experts are useful.
If I flip it, what's the thing that you're proudest to date? The success or an accomplishment?
My marriage.
Wow.
No doubt. By a country mile.
Nothing
has given me more, not money, not fame, not accolades. My marriage. Man, that is my everything.
It's your number one priority. I know that.
For sure. For sure. And definitely the thing I'm most proud of.
If I go to another section in the show, which it's called The Pure Human Behind the Alpha. So I'm going to ask you raw questions for defining or finding out the pure human. So, you've built a media empire around asking better questions. But what's the question you still haven't answered, even in your own head?
I think the only things I feel like I haven't answered in my own head is, where is all this going? Technology is moving so fast right now that I really am obsessed with when humans cannot predict at least 3 years out into the future. I think it causes a great deal of distress. And so we're going to live through that. So I'm really trying to build a mental model for how to handle that. I don't have the answer yet, but it is fascinating to explore.
True,
but that one's still
true.
unanswered for me.
You're known for resilience, grit, and relentless discipline. But when you're alone, falling apart, who's allowed to see that?
I mean, my wife sees every element of my personality. Would I ever say that I'm falling apart? I don't really do that. So even at my worst, I'm always like, okay, I don't do overwhelm. This is about taking small steps to make progress a little bit every day. There was a period in the beginning of game development where I was working 120 hours a week. That is not sustainable. That was miserable. I was damaging my marriage, my health, everything. It was just absolutely terrible. So in that period, I was as like falling apart as I'm going to get. And even then it was like my team here, I asked them when I'd gotten to the other side of it, and they were like, oh, no, we had no idea. So, but my wife knew that I was stressed. There's no doubt about that. So she saw that side of me, but once you realize that letting go, not trying to do everything is the right answer, it gets pretty easy to not quote unquote fall apart.
True. You've made peace with choosing not to have children, but if you could leave one message to a son you'll never have, what would it be?
The first thing I would want to focus people on is what matters the most is what you build your self-esteem around. And so please don't waste a lot of years trying to look cool so that other people can tell you that you're good enough. Instead, just focus relentlessly on the only belief that matters, that you can get better. Now, a lot of life is about the unique personality. And so if I actually had a kid, they might need a totally different lesson. But that's my default. That's the closest thing to a universal lesson that I would want to make sure that they understood. Definitely.
Perfect. If everything you've built disappeared tomorrow, no audience, no brand, no company, what would it be left that still makes you feel worthy?
Well, worthy is about earning your own respect. So if everything disappeared, that wouldn't impact how I feel about myself. It would just be what I would do immediately is say, okay, meaning and purpose matters. And so what am I going to focus on now? And so for me, with my mind, that's a question of what becomes the thing that you think will allow you to have the biggest impact. Do you try to reboot what you were doing previously, or do you start something new? At this point, I think it would be pretty foolish not to have a personal brand. So I'd probably reboot that. But I would focus probably on storytelling right away.
Wow. The last one. You've said Lisa shaped your identity more than anyone.
For sure.
But what's something she saw in you before you ever believed it yourself?
She wouldn't have used these words, but she understood that I could grow and get better. So she would have said potential. You had a lot of potential. And when you read potential as talent, you're in trouble, which is how I read it. When you read potential as, like if you put in the time and effort, you can get better at a lot of things, and maybe better than most. And that's really what she saw, and bless her cotton socks, continues to see. Anytime I'm like, I don't think this one is worth it. I don't think that I'm going to be able to get good enough at that. Even putting time and energy, just reaching out, she'll be like, no. I think you can really become one of the best. And so she does have an ability to see, probably delusionally, but it's very effective. So if I'm likely to see a little bit less than I'm capable of, and she's likely to see a little bit more than I'm capable of, It's better to go with what she sees, because then at least I'm never going to fall short of what I'm capable of. So I'm very grateful to her for having a very delusional vision of what her husband is capable of.
Wow, wow. Tom, we're in the Alpha Talks show, and I usually ask this question: how do you define an alpha? Like, as Tom, what's an alpha for you?
Do you mean that as in alpha in the markets, or alpha as in alpha versus beta?
No, just an alpha. You choose really a leader, but like, you know, like alpha is like the command and conquer version of the past. It's not like the alphas these days. But for Tom, what's an alpha?
So an alpha for me is the person that is best at decision making and is willing, able, and holds themselves accountable to stepping into the breach. So in a moment of danger, in a moment of the unknown, it is the alpha that steps into that. And they do it because they're the one most likely to be able to assess that situation well. And they have the sense of moral obligation to those that they lead, period.
Yeah, I love that. And you know, there's a lovely statement that you said, which is like most people don't articulate what bothers them. So there are two things here I want to know. Why do you think that? And what is the one thing that bothers you right now?
Well, I think that most people just don't take the time to force themselves to have succinct clarity. And the reason that that happens is emotions make dots feel like they connect that don't actually connect. And so if you ask somebody, like, what's your North Star? They'll be like, man, that's so obvious. Like, I'm just trying to, like make things better. I'm trying to like have an impact. It's like, there's no clarity in that whatsoever. But the emotion, when you say it, makes it feel like, oh, I feel the way I want to feel when I say that. Therefore, I must know what I'm actually doing. And people don't. And what's something that bothers me right now?
Yeah.
Well, I'll step back and take a really meta answer to that. And I will say that we live in a world where we are being lied to and manipulated, and people fall prey to the biological imperative to tribe up, and they never get obsessed with cause and effect. And so as somebody that wants to see everybody happy and successful and virtually nobody steer their life by cause and effect, I feel often like I am screaming into the void.
I love that. Purpose. For Tom, purpose is important. But as a hack or a tool that you give to people to find their purpose, do you believe that people should follow their purpose, or they have to do what needs to be done?
So I think purpose is an architectural build, not an archaeological dig. So people are going to need to decide that they're going to make something their meaning and purpose. And then, yes, I think for reasons of managing your own psychology, I think at all times you should be pursuing meaning and purpose. To fail to do that will be to fail to achieve fulfillment. And I think fulfillment is the default mental stance that evolution wants you to pursue doggedly.
But Tom, what is the easiest way for people to find their purpose? Is there a tool right away, or just keep trying, and you see an alignment?
You don't find your purpose. You create a purpose. So if you're going to really Tom, you got to make it a process. The process will go like this. What are 5 things that you find interesting? Okay. Now go deeply engage in those 5 things. Like commit 100 hours to each of them. In the 100 hours of commitment to getting better, are you finding it more or less interesting? The one that you find more interesting has now become a fascination. If you want to turn a fascination into a passion, then what you're going to do is get good at that so that you can do it for someone else in a way that adds value to their lives. Now you've got a passion. Now you're going to loop around that passion as you get better and you're able to better serve, get better, able to better serve, and that just feels good, that loop. And then you say, this passion is my purpose. I want to help people in this way. So a guitar player is I'm going to make people feel better. I'm going to make them feel emotions they otherwise wouldn't feel. An architect is going to make buildings that allow for beauty and protection in a way that other people don't know. A politician is going to try to build policies that make people's lives better.
Tom, there is one thing that you believe or you wish more people knew how to do that would really change their life in 6 months if they really took it seriously. We speak a lot about a lot of skills, a lot of things, but there is one thing that you really believe if they knew how to do it would really change their life.
Well, so we've talked a lot about a lot of them, but one that we haven't talked a lot about is building desire. Given that all of this is a desire problem, people quit because they don't want it badly enough to push through the embarrassment, the failure, the just time, the boredom. So if people understood how to build desire in their life, things would be a lot better.
In a very high or in a nutshell, how to build a desire. Sometimes you start to do something, you get motivated, happy doing it, you have a desire, and then suddenly it drops. How you keep it?
So to build desire, you have to embody the emotion you want to feel for the thing when you talk about the thing, and you need to talk about it endlessly. You need to talk about it to yourself. You need to talk about it to other people. You need to put out TikToks about it. You just need to talk about it. But always at the emotional amplitude that you want to feel, because there is a mechanism in your brain that will go, whoa, we're always really animated about this. We must really care. And through a process called myelination, you will make that feeling, you'll make feeling that feeling the easiest thing to do from a caloric standpoint. And so now, over 6 months, it will be so easy for you to feel that heightened emotion every time you think and talk about that the emotion becomes real. And so in the beginning, it felt a bit fake. It feels like you're faking it.
True.
And then over time, you're like, hold on a second. I actually really do want it that badly. You become or you repeat, period.
Oof. For Tom, what is or you give me a book or a habit or a belief that really made the most impact on your journey or your life?
Well, so I'll give you the book that made the biggest impact on me. It was the Tao Te Ching, but that is not the book that I would recommend to other people. The book I would recommend to other people is Mindset by Carol Dweck. The problem is that book didn't exist when I was going through all of this, but when I read it, I was like, oh my God, she has put into a book everything that I learned going through all of this the hard way.
Wow. Tom, what would be the last message you want to leave the audience with today, the Alpha Talks?
You can do anything you set your mind to if you're willing to pay the price, but most of you aren't going to be willing to pay the price. So if you want to distinguish yourself from other people, track cause and effect and get good at the things that matter, and then go do it. Don't make any excuses. Remember, if you want a different outcome, do something different. Love your life. That's the whole point. I know I have come across very robotic, but life is meant to be enjoyed. Life is meant to be full of love and wonder and awe. And it can be. You don't have to be trapped. You don't have to let other people control your life. But if you're going to take responsibility for your life, you can get the outcomes that you want, but the price you're going to pay is eternal vigilance.
Lovely. Tom, what is the easiest way for the audience of the Alpha Talks to reach you? Is it
at Tom Bilyeu, YouTube, X? Those are the best two places. If you're a business person, LinkedIn.
Perfect. I'll leave all these in the description. And Tom, it's been a pleasure. Loved the conversation. I hope you enjoyed it as well. And I look forward to see you in Dubai.
Definitely, man. Thank you for having me on. I really appreciate it.
Thank you, Tom. Thank you.
That wraps another inspiring episode of today's show. I hope that this episode has ignited your inner alpha and left you feeling inspired, motivated, and ready to conquer any challenge that comes your way. Remember, alphas aren't born, they're made. It isn't about dominating others. It's about embracing your authenticity, leading with integrity, and making a positive impact on the world. If you enjoyed today's episode, be sure to subscribe to the Alpha Talks on your favorite podcast platform. Leave us a review and share the podcast with your fellow alphas. Also connect with us on social media at Seif El Hakim. Share your thoughts, insight, and stories of personal and business growth with us. Let's create a movement of alphas supporting one another. The world needs more alphas like you exactly. Until next time, stay bold, stay driven, and stay alpha.